Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home, wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT, home, safe home.
There we are, all that and more in the hopper on a very busy morning with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We've made our way, Golic, over to the GNC Lounge where we find our friend Will Cain ready to go.
Hi, Will.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good,
I always
thank
love
you.
coming over here.
I like the look. I mean, you obviously, this is the look that, yours as well. You know I like these shirts. Golic has gone with these. What exactly is it's not a polo shirt exactly.
It's a polo. It's Under Armour polo.
But it's a little more. Oh, that's Under Armour.
It's a little stretchy.
It's very designer looking. It's very nice.
Golic, what are you on?
Hugs my sexy curves.
How many days into the jeans are you before they go to the wash? Are you on I wear them 4 times before they're washed, 3 times, 1 time?
You talking weeks?
You tell me.
Actually,
weeks, wears, however you measure.
Actually, these I just put on today. The other pair I had on, I wore for a little while. And then it's just your definition of a little while. Let me just say they walked to the
That's an eternal question, right?
Those jeans walked to the washing machine by themselves.
Then it's your definition of odiferous. Mike and Mike, I mentioned the GNC Lounge. You can mix it up with the GNC Buy 2, Get 1 free mix and match sale. The best thermogenics, vitamins, fish oil, and more from Performix are all Buy 2, Get 1 free. The sale ends today only at GNC. Okay, a lot of things I want to get into with you, Will. I want to start with this latest with the federal government getting involved in basketball, college basketball business. You know, Jay Bill has said a variety of things with us this morning, and as I mentioned, I called him yesterday because I had a lot of questions on this. He's a lawyer, and you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
One of the questions that did come to my mind, like, we live in a world where college basketball is a really, really big deal. The federal government and these U.S. attorneys live in a world where we're talking about $100,000 payments. We're talking about, players getting, funneled to guys who are going to make them suits. These are awfully small issues in the big picture of stuff. Was there any sentiment out there that from people that you heard yesterday saying, maybe the FBI should have more important things to worry about right now than this?
No, I didn't hear that, but I did hear, what's the surprise? What's the big deal here? We've kind of understood this as part of not just college basketball, but college sports. So, I'd be curious to know how much traffic this story drives on, for example, ESPN.com. I'm not suggesting people aren't interested, but there is some level of, yeah, we knew.
It happens.
They're cheating. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that makes this something that people shouldn't be paying attention to, but to some extent it's something we kind of assumed was going on. By the way, regarding the prosecutors and whether or not they have something better, or the FBI and they have something better to do, just always remember, I think, that everybody involved in government at every level to some extent is a politician. And what you do to get advanced as a politician is do high-profile things. And if there's a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York or an FBI agent who wants to advance, one of the ways to do that is to get a high-profile takedown. And I would imagine Rick Pitino would check that box.
But that is true. But because to Greeny's point, I was kind of reading and listening to this yesterday and thought to myself as well, okay, take out FBI, insert NCAA. I could see it. Them doing an investigation into something. But
right.
I thought, you know what, when you're wiretapping hotel rooms, that means you didn't just start this investigation 3 days ago. It's been going on for a while. And I kind of thought the same thing, but your point makes sense. Let's get a big fish here, and that'll make us look good in going forward. But it did. I am with you, Greeny. It kind of seemed like, what are they doing?
So they're going to get one. In everyone's estimation, Rick Pitino is going to go down for this. Will, do you agree with that? In fact, our friend Pat Forty, who now writes for Yahoo, who was our colleague for years at ESPN, suggested that if all of this is true and proven, that he believes Louisville basketball should get the death penalty, which to my knowledge has really only taken place once in sports history, and that was at SMU, which of course is in the backyard of where you grew up. Would you think this would rise to a level something like that?
And in fact, I grew up rooting for SMU. I grew up with Mustangs, ponies, sweatshirts, and T-shirts just outside of Dallas. That ended abruptly in the 1980s. When you give a program a death penalty, fans move on. Look, one of the things that SMU fans have always said is, why us? Like, Why not all these other programs that have done something similar to us? If Louisville doesn't get the death penalty, and this is far in the rearview mirror at this point, SMU fans will have a real, legitimate claim to, why just us?
I wonder. I don't think it'll happen here. I think it's going to take an awful lot to your point, and SMU will keep saying, why us then, and why hasn't it been happening? Because I don't think that's going to happen to them. I think teams will get hammered out of this, but I don't think this is going to go as far as the death penalty.
I don't think so either. And then, Will, I had one more thing I wanted to do. There's another point you wanted to make there. One more thing I want to ask you, because you could just sit back. If you just parachuted in from another planet and didn't know anything about the way this stuff works, and you heard the following details. A perfectly reputable shoe company, Adidas, big, huge company, pays a young man, a basketball player, $100,000 to go play basketball at a particular school where they represent that particular brand of shoe, with an understanding that if he makes it to the NBA, he will wear their shoe going forward and all of that. He's going to go play basketball and go to school the same way that anyone else in his circumstance might. And he's going to have $100,000 for doing it, and has made this agreement with the shoe company that he's going to go play for them someday. Someone might stop and say, well, what the hell is wrong with that?
Everybody's on the same page.
Why would the NCAA have a problem with that? Why in the world would the federal government have a problem with that? So I understand, because I had to call Billis about that, and he's the one who explained to me that what it's actually doing is defrauding the institution, that Louisville now becomes liable. They could lose all kinds of money and all kinds of other things only because it is against NCAA rules, and thus that violation could wind up causing them to vacate wins and all that kind of stuff. But it does bring up the question again, has the amateurism model as we currently know it in college sports outlived its usefulness when we see circumstances like this?
Here's the deal on this. If you say, who's the victim in the entire scenario? You've got two people coming to a voluntary agreement, or two institutions coming to a voluntary agreement, and everybody's coming out of this for the better. Who's the victim here?
Right. Who's the aggrieved party?
The aggrieved party, Greeny, is the person who does not cheat. And now your rebuttal can be to me, everybody cheats. But it's the person that does not cheat and the fan. And the truth of the matter is, when I asked you, who's clicking on this story, how much traffic does this story get, I would guarantee you, I would make a large bet that the vast majority of people interested in this story are interested in, was my school cheating? More than that, is my school going to get busted? That's what everybody wants to know. Because if Louisville is cheating, if Louisville's cheating the system, yes, you can have an argument that taxpayers being defrauded because the taxpayers contributing money to the University of Louisville, and the University of Louisville is breaking rules. But what about, let's just say, for example, pick a random university. I don't want to do Kentucky for some reason. Let's say Tennessee. Tennessee isn't breaking the rules. Then the fans and the institution, the taxpayers of Tennessee, are being cheated by those in Louisville. Now, at some point, the Senate goes, but everybody's cheating, so there are no victims. But I don't know. I guess I'm not ready to believe that.
But that's not my point.
Greeny's point is, don't have this rule. Just let a shoe company pay us
$100,000. The rule, no one would be harmed by it.
And I'm getting to that. So what I'm doing is pointing out there are victims. Yeah. Now, you're suggesting, well, the real culprit here is the amateurism rule. And I have issues with the amateurism rule, but not everything can be tied back to this issue. There are rules in every aspect of society. There are rules on Wall Street. There are rules on the streets with traffic laws. And just because you don't like the rule doesn't mean you should be able to break it, or that the rule necessarily should be gone. We could have other rules that people will cheat. There's always going to be incentives to get around the rules, no matter if it's college basketball, college football, or Wall Street. I'm not sure getting rid of amateurism is going to say, you know what, if we do that, then the coaches will all be on the up and up and on the same page as far as getting players in the door.
Yeah, listen, I agree. This is where you and I would disagree at the Pandora box. So if you let that happen, but you say, hey, you shoe companies, you have to cap it at $100,000. But you can give $100,000 to 4 different players. Well, then someone's going to try and give it to a 5th player. Or someone's going to try and the kid might say, oh, I want more than $100,000. Well, okay, I'll give you $150,000. To Will's point, they're always going to try and beat the system somehow, some way, because you can't just open it up fully and have no rules. So you want to expand the rules. That's open for talk, but then that's just going to be the first thing everybody does is read the new rules. Now, how can we get around them? That's kind of what a lot of people do.
I mean, that doesn't happen in other, like what you're describing would be something similar, if I'm understanding it, to like the salary cap in a professional sport. And there are checks and balances in place that make sure that they don't violate the salary cap. You can't be the
everybody's
49ers and just sign another guy.
Sure you can. That's where a bag of money comes into play. I mean, you can't just.
No, my point is, but if you established for a salary cap in college basketball, for the sake of discussion, which I wouldn't be in favor of anyway, but if you did that, you could have a system of checks and balances that, in theory, is making sure that you don't exceed that level. And you would. There aren't that many kids out there that these programs are going to be giving $100,000 to. How many? What number is it?
Then you know what? The one kid that isn't going to get $100,000, he may get 50, or the one kid they may have to give him an extra 25. Listen, hey fellas, I got 3 different places offering me $100,000. Someone's got to step up a little more.
You know what that's called? It's called capitalism.
But it's called finding a loophole to your rule out there.
Deregulate Wall Street, take away those rules, deregulate kickbacks and bribes and all that, because there's always people willing to do that.
Always going to happen.
Those are rules that make sense because there were obviously aggrieved parties on the other side of those. There is no, in my opinion, I fail to find a victim in Adidas giving $100,000 to an 18-year-old kid. I don't see who's being harmed by that.
The victim is the schools that can't afford to have that done.
Well, the schools now, I think we've even gone away from that because it's Adidas that's doing it, right? I mean, it's not, in this case, it's not even the $100 handshake is what it used to be. But back in your day when you were saying people were offering you money,
right.
It wasn't, the shoe companies that were offering you money.
That's very true.
It's actually a legitimate business agreement that we're entering into.
I think I share a lot of your sentiments on whether or not amateurism is a farce and whether or not people should be able to be compensated for their unique skills in this world. But I'm just not willing to reverse engineer it from the people going, you know what, there's rules being broken, so therefore the rules make no sense.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, and I do not in any way, I've never in any way said, if you don't like the rules, go ahead and break them.
No, you want to change the rules.
But I think that if you don't like the rules, you should talk about changing them. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Will Cain is here. Will, we've talked a lot about Odell Beckham Jr. this morning. What are your thoughts?
First of all, these are my thoughts. I just love that there are there's at least 2 athletes now that are operating on such a higher intellectual plane, perhaps even like such a higher existential plane than the rest of us little small-minded morons running around out here in the world. And Odell Beckham and Kyrie Irving have clearly reached sort of that nirvana stage of existence where they're doing things that we just don't get. Odell tweets yesterday, actually a CNN reporter tweets that, you know what? When Odell was doing that dog peeing thing, when he's doing that, I think it could be, was that maybe a protest against Trump and his SOB comment? To which Odell replies, you're onto something. You know what? You're smarter than you think, than you look. Impressed with you getting that. Kyrie, by the same hand, says, that whole flat earth thing I was doing? I was just trolling you, see what you guys would do for like a year. Just trolling you, media, public, just to see if you'd take the bait. At some point, can we look at this and go, oh, hey, Odell, hey, Kyrie, why don't you just call us morons and get it over with? We're supposed to believe that's what you were doing, Odell, when you lifted your leg? That was a super subtle rebuttal to Trump? Yeah, okay, I got it, Odell.
I think the new one to try and figure out is the NBA player Michael Beasley.
Yeah.
Did you see his little rant or thought process that we only use 10% of our brains? Who was the person who figured that out? He must have been using 11% of his brain. And then he went into about a 3-minute piece on why that had to happen, even though he was rebuked by that and couldn't understand how he would be rebuked. It was fascinating. It was a fascinating 5 minutes that I really wish I had back now.
The difference is I think Michael Beasley might actually believe that. Odell doesn't.
Oh, Beasley absolutely believes that. No, it was hilarious to listen to. But, John Mara is furious at Odell for doing that. But what do you think he can really do or will do?
Well, he can. Can he fine him?
They could theoretically suspend him, but I think we all agree they will not.
No, they're not going to do that.
And they didn't. Look, Tom Coughlin and the NFL suspended him after the Josh Norman game for what was a blatantly dirty, cheap, and dangerous hit. But Tom Coughlin never took him off the field in that game, and the very honest answer he gave afterwards was, I'm trying to win a football game.
Yep.
The Giants this season is hanging by a thread at this point at 0-3. You're not even going to consider taking him off the field, nor would anyone expect you to for a dog peeing celebration.
I'm sorry, that was a Trump protest.
But at some point, yes,
Trump
for his very subtle peeing on the president. Anyway, one way or another, the whole thing struck me as ridiculous. Okay, with regard to that,
yes.
I think it's important that everyone's voice is heard here, and a lot. Mike and I, for the most part, when it comes to the protests that have gone on around the National Football League for over a year now, and particularly this past weekend, we are largely like-minded on this subject. And I think it's important that people who do not agree with our point of view have a voice here and are able to voice it. And I think you come from a different place. So what was your take on everything that happened here?
Well, my overarching take is this. It's possible to believe two things at the same time. In fact, I do. Look at this from the president and the protest. I can believe that what the president did is beneath the office of the presidency. That number one, you shouldn't be calling private citizens out there SOBs, and you shouldn't be using the bully pulpit to influence the employment decisions and the employment practices of private businesses out there. I was in politics before I was in sports. I criticized then President Obama on that exact issue at one time, using the bully pulpit to chill speech. Now, I'm not drawing moral equivalencies. I'm telling you that regardless of the party, regardless of the who's holding the office, I will always stand on the side of free speech. Don't use it to chill free speech. That means I don't like what the president did. I also do not like kneeling before the American flag during the national anthem. I do find it disrespectful. To some extent, I believe it is meant to be disrespectful. When I listened, and I do listen, to Colin Kaepernick say, I will not stand for a country, I cannot take pride in a country that oppresses people of color, African Americans, I hear exactly what he's saying. Now, he has a message, and he has a purpose, and one I'm willing to talk about on the merits. By the way, on the exact specifics you talked about earlier, which, by the way, I don't think, Greeny, are obvious. I think it does take real attention to know what he's talking about. I interviewed Mike Leach on Ryan Russillo's show yesterday. Mike Leach said it's hard to know what the protests are about, it's to some extent. And that's not obtuseness. That's not him trying willfully to not know. It's because what's happened is the protest gets turned into buzzwords like inequality and racial injustice. And nobody is against those concepts. The question is, how prevalent are they in police tactics, in law enforcement, in specifically the killing of unarmed black men across the country? To what extent is race playing a role? And if you think there's not a debate to be had on that, you aren't paying attention to that issue. So I can take an offense to both the president and the protest. And I would just add one thing on this little mini rant. And I listen to you guys. I often do. I listen to Damian Woody. I'm going to be debating Damian on First Take today. The fact of the matter is this. You can't get further down the road of free speech absolutism than me. But this is not a First Amendment issue. It simply is not. The First Amendment is there to protect you from government censorship, not employment censorship.
Right.
You don't expect your UPS driver to give you his latest speech on DACA when he drops off your package. You don't go to the checkout counter of your favorite grocery store and have somebody expect to wear a Make America Great Again hat. It's because the employer says what you can and cannot bring to his employment. And the truth of the matter is the NFL, Jerry Richardson, Jerry Jones, can say what he wants his employees' political opinions to be exhibited on his stage whenever he wants, and my prediction is that will happen sooner or later. The NFL will pass down a rule that says no more of this.
Mike, go ahead.
I don't think the NFL will. I don't think after having then I think you'll get even more guys.
The NBA has the rule.
No, I know they do. They have the rule, but they didn't go. NFL has gone down this road now with plenty of guys kneeling, and now you want to talk about really losing sight of the initial protest. That's what would happen as well. Now, if the NFL all of a sudden, okay, all you guys that are doing your thing, you're not allowed to do it anymore. I don't think there's any way the NFL comes down with that rule. I don't think they want to go down that road. And I get what you're saying about free speech at work. I get it, but some places are, like the NFL, are letting you do it. So is it wrong for you to do it then? Is it wrong for you to take advantage of the fact? I get what you're saying about your UPS driver, but the NFL players feel, right or wrong, they feel, because I hear a lot of people say, do it on your day off. Get in front of a microphone and do it then. Well, the big audience is 65,000 people in a stadium, and then the millions of people that are watching as well. Now you've done a silent peaceful protest to a multitude of people to help get your message out instead of the UPS guy saying it to Jane or John Doe when he's delivering his box.
You have a big audience right now. There's a microphone right there.
Yeah.
Do you feel free? Do you feel appropriate to give your political opinion on every single issue right now?
No, I don't. But it's been allowed in the NFL, and I'm sure they're not the only business. I'm sure there are others that would allow it or have allowed it.
You're right. It has been allowed. That doesn't mean, number one, that it's right or that the NFL feels like it should continue. And when I see Alejandro Villanueva's jersey spike in sales, when I see a Buffalo Stadium worker who's been there for 30 years quit on the spot, when I see DirecTV giving refunds to people who are upset about the anthem or the protest during the anthem, when I see these things, what I have said on First Take, and I'll tell you guys there today, living in the Northeast, in a media bubble, I think we are underestimating the level of resentment towards the form of the protest going on in this country. And it will. I think it will impact the NFL's business. And at that point, Golic, the NFL is going to have this rule I'm predicting will come. It's going to come either at the hands of business cratering, or it won't come at all.
We all know it will become because of money. And what I'll say about Alejandro and his jersey sale, what happened to Kaepernick's jersey sale when he knelt?
You're absolutely right.
It went up. What happened August 1st of this year, his jersey was 39th out of 50. The only person in the top 50 that wasn't in the league. So it's on both sides. What happened to the ratings Monday night? The ratings were one of the highest they've been in a while, not just for the pregame, for the entire game.
But to be fair, that's compared year over year, and last year's was against a presidential debate.
And it's the Cowboys who always get a good rating.
True.
Listen, the point of the jerseys is a simple one. A lot of people feel very strongly in one direction, and a lot of people feel very strongly in the other, and it doesn't take that much to shift the number of the jersey sales thing. It's not as though every single day people are buying millions and millions of these jerseys, so a small shift like that will make that sort of an initial difference. Look, this is a really good topic, and I'm glad that you voiced that. I don't see eye to eye with you, but it is important, I think, that those issues are that we have the freedom to be able to voice them here on this show.
The bottom line, though, to your point, is the bottom line. If this costs the NFL, starts costing them a lot of money, they'll make a rule. You're absolutely right about that. That is the great equalizer in everything.
But then the problem, look, so you start, it's like, what is the thing, if a butterfly flaps its wings, then, a thunderstorm starts somewhere, because now I believe you will start getting massive boycotts from people who feel on the opposite side of that. And so they're in a very difficult spot if it does come to that.
Can I just say this one last thing? Obviously, I have some disagreement, as you just pointed out, with you. I have some disagreement with Damian Woody, Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, whoever it may be. And I just think one of the things that I think a lot of fans, and for that matter, I feel, is that, we've said before, we wish sports could be free from politics. I wish that Alejandro Villanueva and Colin Kaepernick's jerseys weren't markers for where we are in society and where they're being sold. And the reason for that is this. We need it in society. We need politics-free zones. We need places where we don't have to bring our divisive issues to every aspect of life. We need it not just to be mentally healthy as a society. We need it to, in fact, advance those causes. Because if they're everywhere, then we can't advance forward with it. We're always going to put up our dukes and get forward, get at each other. And the thing is, when I disagree with you, I believe that's respect. I believe engagement and individuality, how we treat each other as individuals, that's what's respect. Not agreeing with you, not nodding along, not suggesting that every single protest I think is, appropriate or fair. And I think that's where we need to get. Discuss, engage, disagree, and treat each other as individuals, not break things down into simplicities of racist, or are you for equality, or are you pro-American, or are you unpatriotic? It's all symbols, monikers, and dumbing down, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's well said. I think in this particular case, I have a million different things I would say in response to that, but it'll be a conversation. No, it's good. It's good, and it's something that we should continue to do. Will, thank you. We'll see you on First Take today and a whole lot more. Will and his very nice-looking suit.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, we help keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Longtime listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
A lot of tweets out there about Will Cain and about what we've been talking about for a while. Will makes it articulates his points extremely well, no doubt about that. And as Bud tweeted about when Will asked me, I work here at ESPN, and would I put my political views or what my protests out here in front of my employee? He said, you admitted you wouldn't use your employee or ESPN as a platform. I said, yes, I wouldn't. He said, others shouldn't either. Simple. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. If some employers don't have any retribution for it, or there's nothing that they don't discipline you for it, and you feel strongly enough about something to protest. So it isn't that simple. Listen, going all the way back to the beginning of this, how Will said, I don't like guys kneeling down in front of the flag for the anthem. I don't either. When I first saw it, I was disgusted by it as well. I said, wait, that's a national anthem. Don't kneel down. And as I said, if I were my 25-year-old self in a locker room, my reaction may have been different depending on, around teammates, friends, and the discussion. But so, yeah, I don't like that, but I also am not going to get the hell out of my country and stamp my hand down and say, I fly my colors and let everybody know how patriotic I am without at least listening to what they have to say. And maybe I'll disagree with what they say. I may say I disagree not only with what you're saying your protest is about, but I disagree with you kneeling for the flag as well. But I'm going to listen to that. I think that's the whole thing. I don't like people kneeling for the national anthem, but I am going to listen to what they have to say, which is about what they feel is going on in this country.
Right.
I
don't like it either, and that's precisely why it's an effective means of protest, because it's something that is impossible to ignore. We can keep talking about this between the two of us. We've been going around and around in circles on it for a long time, but I do think it's worth talking about one of the things Will brought up, which is, and actually, you and I mentioned this earlier this morning. With DirecTV offering refunds for fans wishing to cancel their Sunday ticket package, that is initially going to be impactful if it does happen in huge numbers. And I'll be honest with you, I have no idea if it will or it won't.
I don't either.
That will initially be impactful to DirecTV, but ultimately that is impactful to the National Football League. And if it does drive fans in large numbers away from stadiums, if it does drive fans in large numbers away from buying jerseys and other things, if it does drive fans in meaningful numbers away from watching games on television, then it will impact the NFL's bottom line in a substantial way, which impacts everyone, primarily the owners, but also the players.
Yes, it does.
Who are equal partners, or not equal, but they are partners.
They make money off the whole pie.
They share they get a percentage of the total revenue. So if it does start to become that, it's worth pointing out the NBA does have a rule in place.
Yes, they do.
Where one must stand. I saw the rule just the other day. Stand and show appropriate respect. I forget what the wording of it is in the NBA. But this goes back actually to a player, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, 20-some years ago, and they put the rule in place then. Right. And so that is a rule in the NBA, and, it's as simple as that. And the NBA is, from a progressive thinking standpoint, in an entirely different place than the NFL is, and the players are a lot more outspoken and whatever else. Here's the rule. Players, coaches, and trainers are to stand and line up in a dignified posture along the sidelines or on the foul line during the playing of the national anthem.
Actual rule.
That's the NBA policy on what to do during the anthem. And this isn't going to become an issue in the NBA because the players have so much freedom to speak as they choose and to demonstrate their feelings in any number of other ways. They don't need to do this. In football, Colin Kaepernick started this, and this has become the thing. So it does turn into a very complicated issue to me, because if the NFL does start to see, well, this is becoming a real major impact on our bottom line, we're going to put this rule in place. I think you could go 3, 2, 1. There will be a boycott from people who feel strongly on the other side.
It'll be monstrous, because the NFL has now put themselves in a position by all the owners putting out a statement about, especially in reply to the president's tweets, of how basically we're letting our players do this, right?
Almost all of them.
For the most part, that's what you're getting.
Some of them spoke directly to the president. Some of them mentioned his name. Others did not. Some of them, mostly they talked a lot about how great the things that their players do in the community are, which is a pretty easy thing to say.
But wasn't the gist of it, hey, our guys are doing this, and we're okay with it, right? I mean, I don't think everybody's 100% okay with it, but I think the picture they painted in response to the president's tweets were, our players are doing this, we give them the freedom to do this, we're not going to take that away from them.
Right.
And then to
those
your
words
point,
are divisive. We're all about unity.
Exactly.
And you're trying to Will's point, you're trying to be the champion of the words that everyone is interested in.
And you are 1,000% correct that if this affects the bottom line, listen, that's when you see change happen.
But then I don't know what you do.
I don't.
Because
I
it
know.
hurts. You're going to get it on either side.
I agree.
You have a very divided nation on a variety of issues, and this is one of them.
I agree, because then you get the league going to the players and say, guys, listen, you know what? We share the pie here. And the pie's getting smaller. You know how that salary cap goes up every year? Well, we start losing money, it doesn't. And that means less money for you guys. So maybe we ought to think about changing this. That's where it can get to. And then where does that go if that becomes a rule? That's why I think they're kind of, at this point, until it costs them some money, too far down the rabbit hole for those to just think that tomorrow they're going to make a rule that says you have to stand for the national anthem. They're going to need to see some real concrete things costing them money. And I don't know if they will or not. Certainly I saw people on Instagram burning their tickets and burning memorabilia and doing all that. So there's going to have to be a point somewhere. There's that tipping point for a business that brings in $14 billion a year where it says, okay, this is tipped too much on this side. We're going to have to find a happy medium here or a different end game because this is now starting to affect everybody's bottom line.
Yes. And just to say it for a fourth time, once they get to that point, I don't know what they do either.
I agree.
These are complicated issues. These are complicated times. And when you and I were growing up, sports was the toy department, right? It was just a small niche in the fabric of our society. You had sports fans, and then everyone else really didn't care what was going on.
Exactly right.
That's not the world we live in anymore.
It's not.
Sports is so much more integrated into our society to their overwhelming benefit. I mean, that's why there are billions of dollars, not figuratively, but literally billions of dollars being generated every year by the NBA, by the NFL, by Major League Baseball. And with that comes a lot more scrutiny and a lot more opportunistic people out there looking to make a point by putting the National Football League into the middle of something like this.
Yeah.
Now, the NFL got there on their own. But they find themselves, I think, in a really taking your own personal feelings on the subject out of this. I have mine, you have yours, and everyone has theirs, and everyone is entitled within reason to their own. But purely from they have a conundrum on their hands situation. It really is a very complicated one.
And it's amazing. Again, you want to talk about when you open this up to people? Yeah. How about these two texts right next to one another? Mark says, that last segment was a great exchange of thoughts and ideas between all of you. The next one, and maybe, that was Mark who tweeted this. The guy who tweeted this, his handle is Pigface. Hey, Golic, go F yourself. So I can't kid you not.
Oh, you see, you have finally found my fake handle. That's it. Yeah, I want to move on from this because I sit here and I open up my inbox and I see tweets that come in and that aggravate me and I want to respond to them, but I feel like we're just kind of going around in circles.
Can I just see if Pigface tweeted me anymore?
Yeah, well, of course, with a man with his intellect.
Again, Pigface told me to F off.
Yeah.
But he didn't. More than F. And I said I'd like to have a beer with him, and he has not retweeted me about that. So maybe we'll not share a beer. I would enjoy that.
Can we DM Pigface and just see if he has anything further he'd like to discuss?
Yeah.
You want to send him a bobblehead? I mean, it's one guy who's not getting a bobble. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, no, hold on. My wife may give him one, a bobblehead. My God, she's giving everybody else
knows about what happened. Listen, for all we know, she probably agrees with his sentiment. Okay, so moving on to other things. Juan, we're defying the rule, make it more of a no. That's not about the. I wanted to get back to. Well, let's finish the show with where we began today.
Okay.
And that is the whole issue with the FBI and the NCAA and everything else. Is there, and I'll go back to the beginning of this. We both know Rick Pitino pretty well. I mean, for years and years. I've been a fan of his because he was the coach of the Knicks at a time when I was the biggest Knick fan you ever met in your life, and I liked him. I thought he was a great coach. He left under crazy circumstances. And so I continued to root for him sort of everywhere that he's gone, and we know him a little bit right now, but I don't know him well enough to have a significant opinion on anything meaningful beyond basketball. I do think that if indeed there isn't some colossal mistake here, I don't see how he survives this scandal. I really
I don't
see
either.
it.
I would then go to how is he going to go out? Is he going to fight it and say, I didn't know anything, be fired, and then, sue for wrongful termination? Will he be fired and they just go, just leave? Will he resign? Will he say, you know what, I steadfastly deny knowing anything went on in either one of these situations, but I'm the head coach. It's my responsibility, so I'm going to walk away so that they could start over again. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I find it hard to believe that it won't happen.
Me too.
I really do. And then for me, and that's the headline out of this, big schools, big names, Rick Pitino, there'll be other names in there. And how far will this go? What does the FBI eventually want out of this? As I said, they're telling people that are doing these things illegally, just call us and turn yourself in because we have the playbook. We're going to find you. So do guys do that? Do these assistant coaches that may have time in jail hanging over their head start saying more? Is that what the FBI is looking for? Is this one of those, we don't care about the guy in the street corner, we want the guy, the main guy, the big fish? I don't know. Who's the big fish here? You're just going after head coaches? You're trying to find out if they know, ADs know. So I don't know the end game of this or is it just, hey, we did this investigation, and this is what we're turning up, and there's going to be more of it, and it's wrong, and we're going to nail these people.
We just got this on our newswire as we're talking about this. Amid speculation about his future at Louisville in light of a federal fraud and corruption investigation, basketball coach Rick Pitino met with his staff Wednesday morning, a source tells ESPN Michael Eaves. I feel like you, Mike, are getting at, without saying it directly so far, I just mean you haven't said it, I think you think he's going to resign, that they're going to come to him and say, look, Rick, you can't survive this thing. If you want to walk out with, to some degree, your head held high.
I think he's going to walk out with his head held high saying, I didn't know about any of this. He already said it in the first situation with McGee, he said it this time. So he's going to say it, but he's going to say it's my watch. And these major things are happening on my watch. I'm basically taking the sword and stepping away. I think that's how he's going to do it.
This has become such a bad thing for the program, for the team, for the school. It's best for me to step aside. I don't know that. Again, we're just
speculating. Yeah.
He has fought like crazy in other circumstances. I mean, I remember when the whole stripper scandal news first broke, my initial reaction was, well, if this is true, I can't see him surviving that.
Right.
And he survived that. Again, is scheduled to serve a suspension during this coming season for that.
And it was failure to monitor. Usually it's a program. It was failure to monitor Andrew McGee.
Right.
One person.
And Andre, but yes.
Andre McGee.
Right.
So where does this one go? Does it get as far, or is he resigning before it even finishes up?
And as
with the
Bill has pointed out on our air, and as he told me yesterday, there are new coaching accountability rules that have been put in place in recent months or years. At some point recently, they put new rules about coaches' accountability in there, specifically, I think, to address the whole, I didn't know defense.
Because Seth Greenberg is right, and he said he was an assistant way longer than he was a head coach. Assistant's job sometimes is to keep things off the plate and off the desk of the head coach.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah. And just, they got a lot of other things to worry about. I'm going to get this done, make myself look good as well, and the head coach doesn't have to know. Well, now with the rule, they're kind of saying, we don't want to go down that road. Let me end on a really a better note than this. And
Please do.
That's with cookies. I have cookies here. Troy, one of our PAs, his mom made these cookies and wanted to make them for us. They're
that's
lovely
so
cookies.
Nice.
And Jamie is her name. And let me just say, this was if you see, there's 5 cookies left on this plate.
How many were there before?
There was a mound of cookies.
And you ate them all?
No, I had some help from everybody.
This in addition
here.
to the half a cake you had this morning for Mikey's birthday?
I think it's the best way to end the show is to be eating a cookie. Jamie, thank you very much. These are wonderful cookies, and I will enjoy the rest of them.
It's very nice. I tend not to eat food made by people that I don't know, but I think that's wonderful.
Hey, Pigface, you want a cookie?
You're not getting a bobblehead. See you tomorrow, Mike and Mike.